There was once a man who did not believe in God and was not embarrassed to tell everyone about his attitude to faith and religious feasts. His wife, however, believed in God and brought up her children in faith, despite her husband's disbelief. One winter evening the wife went with the children to a service at a nearby church. She asked her husband to go with them, but he refused. "This whole story is nonsense," he said. "Why would God humble himself like that and appear on earth in the form of a man? This is ridiculous." His wife left with the children and he was left home alone. A little later a strong wind came up and a snowstorm swirled. The man looked out of the window but could only see the blizzard. He sat down on the chair by the fireplace and that was how he would spend the whole evening. Suddenly he heard a loud crash. Something had crashed into the window. He walked over to it, but could see nothing. When the blizzard subsided, the man went out into the street to see what it was that could have crashed so hard against the window. In a field near his home he saw a flock of wild geese. Apparently, they got caught in the snowstorm and didn't make it any further. They got lost and ended up near his house, with no food or shelter. Flapping their wings, they flew low over the field in a circle, blinded by the snow. Apparently, one of the geese had crashed into his window. The man felt sorry for these poor geese, and he decided to help them. He thought that the shed would be a good place for them. It was warm and safe, and they could of course spend the night there and wait for the storm to pass. He went to the shed, opened the door wide and waited, hoping that the geese would see him, and come inside. But the geese only wandered about aimlessly, and did not seem to notice the door of the wooden building, or to understand that they needed it. The man tried to attract their attention, but this only frightened them more, and they flew further away. Then he went home and returned with a piece of bread. He broke it, and made a path out of the crumbs leading to the shed. But the geese did not yield to this either. He was on the verge of despair. He stood behind them and tried again to lure them towards the shed, but the geese became even more frightened and began to scatter away in all directions, but just not towards the shed. Nothing could make them go into the building where they would be warm and safe. "Why don't the geese follow me?" exclaimed the man. "Don't they see that they could only survive the storm here?" He thought for a moment and realized that they just didn't want to follow him. "If I were a goose, I could save them," he said aloud to himself. Then an idea came into his head. He went into the shed, picked up one of his geese and carried it to the field. Then he released his goose. The goose flew through the flock and went straight back into the shed, and all the other geese followed it. The man stood in silence for a short time, and suddenly the same words he had spoken some time before rang in his head. "If I were a goose, I could save them." And then he remembered what he had said to his wife a little earlier. Why would God want to become like us? This is ridiculous. And suddenly everything became clear to him. This is what God has done. We were just like those geese, blind, misguided, perishing. God sent his Son to become like us to show us the way and save us. As the wind and blinding snow began to die down, his soul also calmed and was soothed by this wonderful thought. Suddenly he understood why Christ had come. The years of doubt and unbelief vanished with the passing storm. He fell on his knees in the snow and said the first prayer of his life.
"Thank you, Lord, for coming in the form of a man to pull me out of this storm.